Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of the Father Talks podcast. Today, my guest is Nathaniel A. Turner. Mr. Turner, welcome to the show. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm good, thank you. And please just call me Nate, because if you call me Nathaniel, it suggests that I'm in trouble, and hopefully I'm
Right?
not.
I feel like your mom's talking to you.
Right, exactly. Or my wife. Yes.
Nate, man, hey, welcome to the show, man. Listen, man, I am excited to have you here. I know we had to reschedule the one time. I apologize for that,
No
but
worries.
listen, I am happy. Let's get it cracking, man. What got you started in this journey?
This fatherhood journey, I had a child. I had a woman
Well,
who tell me her biological clock was ticking, and
yeah,
she was like, "Hey, quit playing." So that's how I got here. I didn't want to be a father, but I
right.
married somebody who wanted to be a parent. So
Okay.
here we
Hey,
are.
I'm not mad at you. So, how many? Okay, you know what? Let me think about this for a second. Didn't want to be a father, but
Mm-mm.
you want to. How do you feel about being a dad now?
Well, because I've done it and I love my son so much, I couldn't imagine being without him. But I do tell people all the time that there's this other thing that's true. If you don't know what you miss, you can't miss it. So, right. So I would, if I wasn't a father, I wouldn't know what I was missing, because
Right.
I would have other fathers to look at, and a lot of them are not having great experiences. And I didn't have a great experience with my father, which is why I said I didn't want to be a dad.
Right.
But but now that I have the guy who calls me dad, yeah, no, life is great. I couldn't imagine life without him. But yeah, if I didn't have him, I would probably say the same thing to you. Life's pretty good either way it
Okay.
goes.
All right. So when you say a child is the most important engineering project of a parent's life,
Hmm.
are you also saying that many fathers are underbuilding their own children?
Absolutely, that's a great way to put it. That's not what I said, but but that's a great that's a great way to put it. And I have to say it in such a way, because I know sometimes people get offended, and people offend easily. But
Yeah.
what I mean by that is that we live in a very complicated world, and too often we leave children without the tools, techniques, and strategies to make it through a very complicated world. And that's engineering. Like, if someone told you to go out and dig a ditch without giving you a shovel, someone has done you a disservice. If someone told you to go build a skyscraper without teaching you how to be an architect first and the materials that go into building a skyscraper, they've done you a disservice. Well, today we raise children, and we don't think about the world that these children are going to have, the skyscrapers they got to climb, right? The ditches that they got to dig to get to where they want to get. And so we've just done them a grave disservice.
Okay. So let me follow that up with, where do you think most men are often failing, as far as, their vision, structure, consistency, with
Sure.
their career?
I think most men don't even think about, they don't even have a plan. I think most people, men, women, they plan more for vacation than they do for their child's life. They plan more for how much money they're going to save when they retire than they do for what it's going to take to get a child from kindergarten to the first grade. Like, honestly, we don't do much planning at all with children. I don't think that it's necessarily intentional. I believe we live in a nation, and because I've only lived here, so I won't try to speak for other countries, but I know this nation does a horrendous job of help making sure families are prepared to raise children. We have Lamaze, which teaches us how to eat ice chips and to breathe before a baby is born. But the very moment that a child is born, in 36 hours, some cases 24 hours, the hospital's kicking you out, and you got to figure it out on your own.
Yeah.
That's really not a great process to have.
Yeah. You know what? And I remember, like with my first, we were at the hospital for a couple days.
Okay.
It wasn't this rush, hey, you spit your baby out, let's say Monday at 7, hey, you gone the following morning,
Right.
as early as they can possibly discharge you. You know, so I don't understand what happened to the taking care of people, making sure that everything is all right before we
Well,
kick them out the door.
I can tell you what happened. I'm gonna just do this. If you're right, I'm rubbing my fingers together. If you're, if you're right, right,
Money,
money. The sooner we get you out the bed, we can charge somebody else. So the money is made in the operation. I mean, in the case of most, I should say, an overwhelming number of Black women, when they go to have a child, they have cesarean, which is considered a surgery, which is way
right?
more profitable than a natural birth. So the sooner we can
Okay.
have this surgery and get you out the hospital and get the next person here to have a surgery, it makes more money.
Yeah. And so, yeah, I did not know that fact, so
Yeah.
learn something new every day. Okay, so your work talks about designing a child's future intentionally.
Mm-hmm.
How do father how do how does a father do that without becoming controlling or abusive, or seeming to, at least, to be abusive, because they're just trying to prepare their kids for the future.
Sure, no problem. I do this thing all the time where because I love words. So sometimes I like to take the word someone else used and then ask you what the word is in reverse. So
Okay.
you use the word controlling and abusive. And I would ask you, who should have control in a child's life but the parent? And is direction abusive? Because you go to work, if you work for somebody else, they give you direction. If right, but you don't think it's abusive because at the end you get a paycheck. At the end, there's
Right.
something that you want. So I think the use of certain words are problematic. I would say, how do you get a child to backward design a child, strategize a child's life? You think about what you want for the child in the end. See, I think it's abusive if you have a child and you haven't made a plan. I think that's abusing a human being to bring a human being to the earth and not have a plan on how they're going to succeed. That's
Right.
abusive. Right.
Well,
Right.
society tells us, tells these kids nowadays that a strong parent who wants you to have a bright future, who is on you about doing the right thing,
Mhm.
they're controlling you, and they have a right to do that. And I'm like, and listen, I can tell you, n- I have firsthand experience of this, you know, because I've always tried to be a good leader, you know, for my kids, and just try to constantly point them in the right direction. And I've constantly heard, well, you're too hard on the kids, and you're too this, they can't come talk to you. But oftentimes I find that kids don't want to. Some kids don't want to talk to you. They want to tell you about what you shouldn't do, or what's not right. Listen, man, I'm here to set you up for success. I'm not here. My parents were not my friends. And that's something I tried to stress to my kids. We can be friends when you have kids of your own.
Okay. All right. Um, so you said society. And so again, I told you I'm a lover
Yeah,
of words. I think we we talk about society as if society is this mythical abstract being. Society is
right,
Sam's and Susan's. Society is you and I. You and I set a
right.
tone that tells people that a certain behavior is acceptable. And enough of us do it,
Mhm.
then so few people say something like you just said, then it looks like what you're saying makes completely no sense because you're completely going against the grain. So I don't think it's
Right.
society. I think as much as it is people who are because the preponderance of people raise children without a plan. So when you have a plan, you look like the oddity. If you're the only person in your neighborhood cut your grass and everybody else let their grass just grow wild, you look like the crazy person. Conversely, if everybody cut their grass and you let your grass just grow wild, they're gonna call somebody on you to have you removed. Your
Eh,
homeowner association is gonna get rid of you. Right. But so
yes,
who is
facts.
that? Right. And that's the world we live in. Other people set a tone for what they think is acceptable. And then the masses follow most often without thinking even the slightest a bit about what they're doing. This is what we've always
Right,
done. Well, why have we always done this? I don't know. It's because we've always done it this way. Yeah, but this doesn't make any sense. Well, Nate, you can't do that. Michael, you can't tell your kids that's not what you do. And then your kids come home and tell you what the rest of society, Susans and Sams and all of those people have told them to do.
right. So, looking at some of your work, talking about humanitarian drive and that.
Mm-hmm.
Me as a father, you know, why should I care about raising kids who serve humanity instead of just children who win?
Well, I know that's a rhetorical question. I already know you. I already know you know why. Right, right. As Mufasa would say, we are all part of the great circle of life. So right, that's why you do it because we all have to coexist. And if I don't care about you, then you don't have to care about me. And if I don't care about the
Right,
people you care about, your people won't care about my people. And hence we have some of the confusion that we have today. So yeah, I want my son to care deeply about something greater than him. I want him to lead a planet, hopefully, better than he got it. And I know he got it in a mess because I know that my parents and their parents before them, they messed it up and they left us a mess. And we didn't do too good a job of fixing it. So now we pass it on to another
Right.
generation and it's a mess. But in order for them to fix it, like they got to work collectively together. And the only way they can do that is if they have a full understanding of what it means to be humanitarian.
Woo! Let's go. I, lo- I love it. I love it. So, all right. Do you feel like we're creating children who are empty inside? Because I feel like so for instance, okay, my daughter was at a pep rally the other day. Not even a pep rally. They had a guest in, and they were talking about the issues with drugs, and this gentleman had lost his son, to a drug overdose a few days after that child's friend had passed, from the very same drug overdose, you know, and sitting there, all these kids are supposed to be listening, but they're all sitting back, making jokes, cracking up, laughing and whatnot, while this man is telling everybody about this painful moment in his life.
Mhm.
These are not the kids that we should be raising, or at least hopefully that's not how they are at home.
Mhm. My grandmother we just buried her on Saturday. I say that not for sympathy. She got to she lived 100 years. In fact, both of my
Mm,
grandmothers lived to be 100, over 100. But the reason I say it is because both of my grandmothers would profoundly tell me trees and fruit.
okay.
So oftentimes what parents see when they see their children is an outward manifestation of who they are. We don't like to acknowledge it. Like we don't like to acknowledge, but once upon a time we did. Once upon a time, if you were walking down the street in your neighborhood, I'm guessing, I could be wrong, Mike, but someone would say, "Hey, ain't you so and so's son?" Right, right, because they would know you. They would know you by the tree that bore you.
Yes.
Today, we don't do much of that. Today, parents don't connect who they are and what they do with who their children are and what their children do. Science tells you that the first 1,000 days in a child's life are the most important days in a person's life. Period. The first
Mhm.
1,000 days. The first 1,000 days are spent with whom primarily? Mom and dad.
True.
Whatever you happen to see them at 16 or 17, oftentimes occurred in those first 1,000 days.
Mm,
People say it takes you 10,000 hours to become an expert. When you see the child lacking sympathy and empathy for other human beings, they have spent more than 10,000 hours lacking sympathy and empathy for other human beings. They've been watching it model. If it be television, if it be their parents not showing up on time for stuff, if it's being dismissed at home. Because again, we just see the outward. What we see, I like to believe, is an outward expression of who people are inwardly when we don't see them.
right. Man, listen, I'm gonna need you to speak to some. I got a group of kids I might need you to talk to.
Well, I
So,
talk to the parents because see, this is the
yeah.
tree and the fruit part. Like every parent says, talk to my kids. And I'm like, no, I need to talk to you.
Mm.
You the model, you the tree. Look, if you've ever been, and I don't want me to cut you off because you're about to
No,
say
no,
something.
you're good.
If
No, you're
you've
good.
ever been in, I don't in an
Yeah.
orchard, say you've been in
Okay.
an apple orchard, or you like lemons. My cousin sent us lemons from California during the funeral. I don't know why, but she sent us lemons. Whole nother story. But I would say I know lemons grow on trees. If you and I went to her backyard and we pulled a lemon, and if the lemon tree could talk to us, and the lemon tree was like, I'm a little bit pissed off. That should be an apple. You've never seen a tree deny what it is that they created. Only human beings do that. Only you and I like to pretend like what we created is not our creation. No, if you saw it and it didn't look like you wanted it to look, that's your creation. And you can either correct it or you can deny it. But at the end of the day, when your life is over, we're always going to align that person with you.
Right. Okay. Mm, man, look, I'm not gonna lie to you. That's a little upsetting because sometimes some my boys have done some things. Sometimes I'm like, hey, you must get that from your mom. I know better than what you just did.
I try
Yeah,
that too, but
yeah,
but it don't work.
yeah.
She's like,
Right.
no, no, I
Right.
know that he's yours. I'm like, I know. I try to do Mufasa and say, before sunrise, he's your son. But that that only
Yeah.
works in the movie.
Don't fly.
It don't
You
work.
know, fathers were never given like a blueprint, excuse me,
Mhm, mhm,
manhood, leadership, or parenting.
mhm.
How does a man create a life template for his child, no, without having one to work from?
Right. I would just tell you what I did and what I believe is true for all of us. I believe we know what we don't like. I believe we know what doesn't work. I believe that if you were a carpenter and you were self-taught and you decided to teach your son how to be a carpenter, you could give your child instructions. You could actually write a manual on being a carpenter. You could do that. Whatever it is you do for a living, I don't know what you do for a living, but before you did the thing you were doing for a living, you didn't know how to do the thing you were doing for a living.
True, true. I mean,
Right.
a lot of studying,
Right.
and I mean, definitely, and I mean, for me, I've been fortunate enough. My real father didn't want me, so hey, somebody else stepped up to be there. And I give up, kudos to my stepdad all the time for that because that is not a job that he had to, take on.
Absolutely.
You know, so let's
But I
follow
was just
that.
think I was just
Yep.
thinking about it in terms of not I didn't want to personalize it like for you, but just want to say if you had a hobby, let's say you had a hobby, there's something you're really good at. You could tell someone how to do it. You could actually create a script for how to do it. Here's what you do. It may not be perfect, but this is what I would do. I wouldn't do this. I tried this. This didn't work out. You might want to like you could do that. But
Mhm.
again, when it comes to becoming fathers, we don't bother to do that. We don't
Right.
take an assessment of what worked for us. We don't take an assessment of what didn't work. So then we have children and we just do whatever. And one day we say, oh my God, I shouldn't have done that. Yeah, no, but you knew that long ago. You just didn't take an assessment of who you were to begin with. So how do you create this template? You first take an assessment of who you are. And that's the very first thing I did. I didn't want to be a father. So I had to ask myself, well, why don't you want to be a father? I want to be a father because I can't stand my own father. He and I cannot get along. Why can't y'all get along? Okay, you start unpacking why you and your father can't get along. All right, all right. So you are here right now. Right now, at the time I was in law school, and I'm like, I'm in an okay law school. I'm not in a great law school. I don't even know if I'm gonna have a job. Guess what? I'm looking in the mirror and I'm seeing my father. He was unemployed so many times. I was mad at him. Now now I'm unemployed, and I feel like I'm just like my dad. Well, what do you need to do different? Maybe you should have gone to a different school. Okay, well, what school could you have gone to you think you'd have a job if you were not a great student? Harvard. If I could have gotten to Harvard, they'd have hired my black behind regardless of what grades I had.
Yes.
Maybe not today, but in 1994. So like,
Right.
yeah, all right, so cool. Well, what would have taken you to get to Harvard? And then you start to take a look at your life and you just backtrack. And then you say, okay, well, now I'm getting ready to have a new life. Then design their life so they can get to where you wanted to go.
Okay.
And so
So
yeah, that's what we did. We wrote Harvard and got an application and took the application and took it apart and found these three elements to help an unborn child hopefully meet the academic rigors of Harvard by the time they were 16.
right. So you were talking about relationships with our fathers and that. You know, my dad wasn't there, but I had somebody step into that role.
Sure.
You said that you didn't have a relationship with your dad.
And have a good relationship. Right. Not a
Okay.
good relationship. Yep.
So for those guys out there who are in similar situations, you know, I mean, because I can admit today that it bothers me a bit that I wasn't worthy of whatever my father just for whatever reason he chose not to be there. That
Mm-hmm.
I struggle with that sometimes, and similarly, I know other men are out there like that.
Mm-hmm.
So with that being said, can a father build something better for his children while still ultimately trying to heal from his own issues?
He not only can he has to.
Okay.
Otherwise, don't be a father. Like otherwise, if you grew up poor, if I said, well, I grew up poor, so I guess how can I have any wealth because I don't know how to have wealth because I was always poor. Everybody would look at me and say, man, you're out of your mind. Like you can figure out how to make a dollar. So that would say the same thing about fathers. Hey man, I know. Again, I could tell you, you and I could share horror stories. You could tell me about the father that wasn't there, and I could tell you about the father who was there, who I wish was someplace else. But right, right. We could be brutally and radically honest and accepting our condition, but then we got children, and that don't matter to them. That none of that matters to them. They're like right now, dude, that's in the past. That's in the past. There's no future, there's no yesterday, there's only now. Who are you gonna be in my life right now? That's it.
Mm,
That's it. Who are you gonna be in my life today? If we get it tomorrow, we'll talk about tomorrow. Today. If this our last day, how do you want to spend it?
right. And I realize, as a father now that for a long time, I tried to make up for the things that I didn't have or I didn't get from my parents.
Sure.
It is taking me a long time to realize that, what, my presence was more important than anything else. And that, I always tried to make sure when I really realized that I was always present for my kids. You know, uh, I tried to show up for every event. Every time they picked up the phone and said, "Dad, hey, I need to talk about this," or, I always tried to make sure that I was present. And oddly enough, my kids, they call me for life stuff. They don't call me for, hey, I need a pat on the butt,
Right.
I need some soft love. They call me for life, and in a way, it's I love it,
Mhm.
because when they're not calling me, I feel like they're you know what? I know they're doing
You're doing
okay.
okay. Yep.
But when I get a phone call and I'm like, and sometimes kids, let me take that back. My kids do call me just to say, "Hey, dad, what's up?" But, oftentimes when we go periods without talking, I know
Mhm.
that they're because
Yeah.
there's no
Mhm.
BS going. So I'm cool with that. Let's move forward. Let's move on to I'm talking about kids. Talking about raising kids, children with inner. We're talking about raising children, excuse me, with
Mhm.
intellectual ambition.
Mhm.
Okay, what does that mean beyond simply, getting good grades?
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, it does mean getting good grades and getting test scores initially so that somebody else could pay for a child's education. So there's that reality. But today, when we think about intellectual ambition, we're really also thinking about critical thinking. Like, can we raise someone who can think critically, who can think above being a person who don't cut his grass because nobody else cuts the grass on the block, right? Right, right. But somebody who can actually think critically about caring about somebody else, even if nobody else cares about somebody else. Like, that's the big piece. Can we raise people who think critically? Because we mostly live in a nation where people don't like to think critically. They want somebody else to tell them what to do. They want the shortcut for everything, and like their life, if you're taking the shortcut, you're probably going to get the shortcut. So
Mhm.
yeah, making sure that you can think on your feet. You can understand. You can start to investigate primarily like what's a truth and what's a fiction. We have today. We have a nation, where people make up facts. Like, can you? If you can't think critically, you can't see when a fact is being made up. Like, do you know
Right,
how to find the root source of stuff when someone is saying something to you?
right. Yeah, and that's the thing is that I found that, and this it isn't with just children, just
Mm-hmm.
kids. I find it, with adults that,
Adults.
people, we don't do anything of our own. We see something flash across the TV, we take it as fact
Mm-hmm.
without doing our own homework,
Mm-hmm.
you
Mm-hmm.
know, and you get mad about things and it could be something absolutely ridiculous, but you get yourself worked up about something and find out that, hey, guess what? Had I've just, opened a book or did my own research, I would have found out that this ain't even true.
Right. Exactly.
And
Exactly.
if you're that person, that is also what your kids see.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So they do the same thing. They jump to wild assumptions because, this is what I saw on TV or this is popped up on my news feed, you know,
Yeah.
without thinking of it, like you said, thinking critically. Standards. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Are parents afraid to set high expectations because they don't want their children to feel pressure?
It depends on what parents we're talking about. So I think it's interesting if you're talking about wealthy, extremely privileged parents.
Yeah.
What they want for their children, what the lengths that they're willing to go to for their children to be wealthy and privileged to maintain this thing is a whole lot different than people who are poor to middle class
Scraping by.
understand, right? So here's an example. I'll give you an example. We've run a program for years called the Extraordinary College Planning Tour. where we actually want to teach parents from any socioeconomic background how to find a way to get your child to the best schools in the nation and to do so for little or no money, right? Little or no money. When I talk to people who are our peers, I'm assuming your peer. When I say, well, certainly same skin tone,
Yes.
who are our peers, who are middle class to below middle class, those people always find an excuse why they don't participate. But I've had wealthy families ask me to raise their children. I've had wealthy families pay $750,000 a year for somebody to provide them with the insight that I could offer. So when you say, like, are we afraid? I think we got to talk about who we're talking about, because people at the top end of the socioeconomic stratosphere are willing to do anything to get their kids to stay there with them. And the rest of us are not willing to do the same thing, certainly not academically. Now, if I give you a basketball, I'll put you in every AAU program, I'll put you in every NFL cares program. And I don't say that disrespectfully, because I
Right.
know people who play in those leagues. I can go out on the football field every summer and see, hundreds of kids. I can go to the AAU courts and see gyms being run all day long. But you ask me to show up to help my kid achieve academically, and I would say to them, well, who do you think runs the world? Does Jeff Bezos, what basketball team did he play for? How about Bill Gates? Right, right. How about Jensen Hung? You can't name any of those people, but they're running the world. And when I'm saying to you, hey, let's make sure our kids position to do that, you don't feel the same way about that. So I don't think it's universal parents. I do think sometimes it's about socioeconomic.
Right. Okay. So I want to get, I want my son to be, my sons, even though some of them, two of my boys are adults now, I want them to continue moving forward, looking to be better than me. And I mean, your dad's the only, and let me take, your dad is the only person in your life, most of us, you for your son, who always is in your corner telling you, I want you to be better than me. All will always support you to be better. I want you to be better. I want you to have more. I want you to be, you know, the man.
Hmm.
You know? So I definitely want, I still want that for my kids, but I don't want to be the dude that's constantly harping on them.
But your children are grown now, so I do like that. We can make a slight distinction. They are, they're grown, right? So we got grown people now. But if you and I were having this conversation and we had infants, like, we wouldn't be caring about what the infant thought, because the infant don't have no thoughts. Like, yo, you're gonna eat this baby food because it's all I can afford. You're gonna sleep on this bed because and I'm gonna pray I don't have no plastic on it because I don't need you to get SIDS. Like, the baby doesn't have as many. The baby makes no decisions, and we're okay with that because
Right.
you're supposed to do that. At some point, we go from being the coach to consultant.
Mm, okay. I Yeah, I'm definitely in the
You and the
consultant.
consultant, right?
I'm
Right.
I'm I'm in the consultant phase of my
Right,
life.
right.
For the most part, I am. Yeah. So
So am I. So am I. I'm no longer the coach. I'm the consultant, sometimes business partner.
yeah, and listen, man. Again, I don't mind. You know what? Being there for the kids, doing for the kids and stuff. When they come back and pick up the phone or come by, like, hey, Dad, I need your help with something. You know, man, like, it is the best feeling
Best
in the
feeling.
world. Because,
Absolutely.
because I'm like, where I think that I failed, I'm reminded that, maybe I didn't do so bad. You know what? Because you're coming to me for the advice, so obviously you trust me enough or trust what I think to come and talk to me.
Yeah, you're not talking about transaction relationships. I always say to people, like, the best thing that I think parents can do and should do as their children get older is to stay relevant
Mhm.
so that you maintain a utility.
Yeah.
Right? Because so many parents are no longer relevant. So if you're not
Right.
keeping up what's going on, you're not keeping up what's going on in their life, what matters to them, then you're probably going to lose relevance in their life. And they're probably not going to pick up the phone and call you. But as long as you stay relevant, you keeping up with what they're doing, you have some insight about what they're doing, you might be able to offer a suggestion here and there. they're gonna keep calling you because you've already built a history. They have a history of trust with you, and now they just need you to stay relevant.
Right. Okay. So, we're this show is all again all about fathers, and the things that we need to be better at, the things that we can, you know, and not just be better at, just trying to improve us as men.
Mhm.
You know, oftentimes, the show we center around, men trying to build a legacy. How should fathers define legacy when it comes to their children? You know, what should we, what, yeah, how should we be trying to define legacy when it comes to our kids?
Okay, I'm gonna try to answer your question. I heard what you asked me, and I'm gonna try to
Yeah.
answer your question. By day, but I want to say I want to give you a little bit of caveat. By day, for the last 30 years, I've run a financial services company.
Okay.
So most of my clients think about their legacy as their net worth, right? When I die, Nate, let's make sure that I have my documents in place. I got my trust in place, and my accounts have this value. Hey, what's my account value right now? La, 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 la. Well, that's great. That's great. You see net worth. I would see heart worth. You see generational wealth. I see generational health. See, because I know generally in 3 generations or less, families that have money are broke.
Okay.
But if you have families who know how to love and care for one another, then that goes on for much longer than it does if we're just simply talking about money. So what do I think the father should be thinking about in terms of legacy? I think legacy is providing your children with directions on how to be the best possible humans that you could be. I think that aside, you and I could name wealthy people, maybe, but we can't. We'd have a hard time naming wealthy people who changed the world. You and I can name wealthy. We can name intellectually wealthy people. We can name people with a heart worth that changed their life. If I ask what was Dr. King's net worth, you can't tell me. If I ask you what Malcolm X's net worth is, you can't tell me. If I ask what's the net worth of Fannie Lou Hamer, you can't tell me. I'm named after Nat Turner. I can't tell you what Nat Turner's net worth was, but you and
Right.
I all know him. We know how he changed us. We know whose hearts he changed, the hearts and minds of people he changed. So I think
Mm,
we have to start thinking about that and think less about this whole other pursuit of legacy in terms of a dollar.
okay. I like that. I like that a lot. So I wanted to change gears real quick because sorry, I apologize.
No
Your
worries.
life template method.
Yes.
Let's talk about that. Explain to us what that is.
Okay. So I'll just tell you, it originates from this guy who doesn't want to be a dad. So
Mhm.
Latanya, that the woman who calls me husband, Latanya, says, "Hey, biological clock's ticking. We about to have this. We gonna have a baby. Come hell or high water, bro." So like, all right, all down with the stuff that we got to do to get the baby, but having the baby, we'll see about it. So she tells me it's plus. It's plus. Famously, we're having this child. We wrote hard. We get this application back, and again, in my mind, right, this very primitive mind is just simply thinking, how could I have gotten to Harvard? But when I get the application from Harvard, when we get the application outlines 3 things that later become the life template. It says, of course, kids have to do well academically. Check. Second element is said, looking for people who are world citizens. And third, it said, looking for people who care for something greater than themselves. And so over time, Latanya and I have given that a little more depth and a different title, but we now call that what was originally found in this Harvard application. We call that the life template, which is the belief that every child should have the opportunity to be raised to be intellectually ambitious. Every child should be raised to have a global and cultural competency because the world is big, but the world is also very small. And the better you and I understand other people, the more likely other people are interested in understanding us, and then the world flows a little bit better. And then lastly, that can we raise people who care for something greater than themselves, and that becomes the humanitarian piece. And that's the life template. And at any age you are, you can say to someone, where are you at in your life? And you can tell me what it is you want to do, and we could plug in the life template steps to get you to that destination. Because almost every corporation, almost every school, almost every entity uses some formula that says, hey, here's our mission, here's our vision, Every university has that. Every corporation has that. Every church, every, any entity, not for profit, they all have these mission and vision statements. And yet we don't strive to meet those requirements of those mission and vision statements. And that's what the life template helps you do.
Okay, so and I don't want to forget about this at any point. Where can people reach out to you? And I'm going to ask you again before we close, but where can people reach out to you who want help?
Sure. So we have a not for profit now called the League of Extraordinary Parents,
Yeah.
and you can find us. You can find us at the League of Extraordinary Parents. The website's pretty simple. Is alextrap.com. So
Okay.
right, and then I have a separate site where you can find me, and it's being revised. So you'll soon find more things that I've written and those kind of things that'll be there. Like I'll take on some issues, some public, some global issues that I don't want to be associated with what we do with parenting. So you'll find that there. That's at Nathaniel A. Turner.
Okay. So I've got two young men, a friend of my son's just became a dad,
Okay.
and my middle son just became a dad. Okay. And this conversation that we're having is critically important, because they're both raising young boys themselves. Okay. How can give it give us some guidance anyway, in a way that fathers can create systems inside their own homes that help their children thrive instead of drift,
So one of the
because
cool things, like hearing you, like this time, these 40 minutes or so I spent with you, one of the cool things that I've heard you say, that I hope you've heard you say yourself, is that you have an instructional manual inside you that you just haven't put pen to paper. So I'm going to challenge you to start to write down the things that
yeah.
you believe make a good father. Right? I think
Mm,
you
okay.
should write that. That is your legacy to your sons. And then every time, like and then every son then builds on that. So everybody adds to that. And these become
Okay.
the Darden lessons on manhood.
Okay.
These are the Darden lessons on fatherhood or parenthood. You do that. You start with that because you have insight and wisdom. You can already tell me what you did wrong. I already know what we I know what you did wrong because I did them wrong too. So
Yeah.
right,
Lord, Lord,
right, right,
Lord.
right, right. And whatever you did right, maybe I did some of those. You may have done more right things, but the point is, you can start with that. So you be the tree, so your fruit can follow. Now then, ask your sons to write down, if today was their last day on the planet, what do they want their children to know about them? And whatever that is, they better get busy living that life right now, because you cannot be in death what you were not in life.
Right. Yeah. And let me. I have been trying to make the absolute most of it. Trying. It's easier now to explain to my kids that now that I have a better understanding who I am.
Sure. Right.
And again, I was never taught how to express myself. I was
Hmm.
never taught how to say, "Hey, I am this way because it is not because I'm mad." Okay. It is because I am concerned about your future.
Hmm.
I am, I am not angry with you because, I don't care about you. You
Hmm.
know, I am angry because I am concerned for you, you know. And listen, I have posted a few of these videos and I always get some chucklehead in there. You talk about, oh, y'all, you trying to raise soft ass kids and this, that, and the other. Let me tell you something. I was a kid who didn't get a lot of, hugs and I love yous and whatnot. And it made me a very, very hard
Art.
person. You know,
Hmm.
I haven't, and again, it's a work in progress, but I haven't cried, man, in like 20 years, but because I know how that has affected me, that is not something I force on my own kids.
Right.
You are still equally a man if you need to cry, because just because I don't mean you
You do.
have to stop.
Right. Right.
You know,
However, as your fruit,
yes,
when they see you, they borrow your temperament.
yes, yeah,
Right.
and
So
they,
I'm with you because my dad was in the military and he was very much, you're going to call me yes, sir. And I'm like, man, this is absolutely ridiculous. And then
yeah,
when my son was born, here's what I did. And I can't take any credit for it. I'm just going to say this was divine intervention. I started writing notes to this unborn
okay,
child. I just started writing notes. Hey, I got to do better than my father. Like I got to do better than my father. Because again, I said, starting with an honest assessment. In 1995, uh, uh, a Kaiser Permanente put out a study, and it became this thing called adverse childhood experiences. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but you probably should look at it, and you should probably
Okay.
take the test. There's this 10-point questionnaire that asks you about your childhood. Did you grow up in a home where somebody abandoned you? Yes, Michael did. Did you grow up in a home where you were abused verbally or physically? Did you grow up in a home where you saw somebody abused verbally or physically? Did you see somebody molested or raped as a child? Like, have you ever seen someone in the commission of a crime? Did someone in part of the penal system live in your home and all that? So there's these 10 questions. When Latanya and I got married in 1995, when I was born, we found the test. I had 8 of the 10. She had 7 of the 10. Collectively, we had 9 of the 10. So when you are honest about who you are, you're like, well, listen, I'm broke people, break people, hurt people, hurt people. The only way we can do something different is to have a plan or a strategy to do something different. So I just wrote notes about what it was I wanted to do for this child. And fortunately, at 2, that child walked into the mailbox with me one day, said, Daddy, getting mail. He said, where's my mail? And I was like, hey, man, I got nothing but bills. Like, I got bills. This is not like, but Daddy, where's my mail? Like, man, you don't want, but Daddy, where's my mail? So I end up going to Target. I buy greeting cards and I buy postcards, and I just start writing him. And what I learned from writing him is what you just articulated. My son would see my face and see anger and completely tune out anything I said. My
Right.
son might see joy and not understand what I'm joyful about because it was a process. You did some things right for me to get to this moment. And so then I just decided I'll just write him, and I'll just write him without any facial expression. He don't have to see facial expression. There's no intonation in my voice. I just write him, but I won't write him like he's 2. I write him as he's 32. I won't write him
Right.
as he's 4. I write him as he's 54. Whatever I write, I want it to have a lesson that can last for all eternity. So that's what I started to do. And that's one of the things I highly encourage fathers to do. Write your kids, because that way you can think about what it is you want to say instead of reacting, which is the way a lot of us were raised to do. We react.
Very, yeah,
Yep.
I learned to be very reactive, and again, it's been a process, because I always it was always with love, like I had my daughter, she had a really nasty car accident. We almost lost her,
No, I'm
and
sorry.
yeah, believe me, back in 2003, she's healthy. She's got a kid of her own now.
Very
It's
good.
a
Yep.
it's a hurdle we managed to climb over, but that accident shaped how I parented, and it has shaped the man that I became because I never wanted to make another mistake that might put another kid in harm's way. Like and it wasn't necessarily my decision making, but I wanted to be sure that my kids knew that when I tell you something, you better do what the hell I say. And my daughter, at the time, not listening, I told her never cross the freeway. She listened to her friends, slipped, got run over by a truck.
Oh, damn.
You know, so but that accident, that 3 months that we spent in the hospital, that shaped me as a father. So after that, my kids, they couldn't go anywhere by themselves. One of their siblings always had to be with them, or somebody had to be with them. So this way, if something happened, there would be somebody witness to it. There would be somebody who could call the police or whatever have you. And my kids know now why I was that way, and there's still there's still a little resentment for it, because they didn't understand it. And I figured, what, when they get older, they'll figure it out.
But
That
you might put it in writing. You
yeah,
might put it in writing. Like the
and
cool. Well,
that's
you
actually
go.
yeah. No. I'm just as soon as you said that, that's
Uh,
actually not a good idea.
and I was gonna say, like the cool thing today, we have way more tools and stuff. Well, I got to use AI for this. I'm like, yeah, okay, whatever. But we all have camera phones for everything now. And so you have the ability to tell not only your children something, but your great grandchildren something about life. And they can hold on to it for all the posterity. Like that's the unique thing. You can explain to your family, hey, this is what happened. and this is why I reacted, and I hope, like, as a family, we do these things moving forward. And
Right.
somebody in 100 years can turn on the video and say, great granddaddy said, look at this. He said, don't be crossing the streets by yourself. Take your family with you. Right, right, right.
It's a you know, it's something that I definitely need to, consider. I just, again, my goal is to hopefully, just put some more good out there for fathers, who are in a similar who don't have any guidance. They don't have anybody to lean on, to talk to. You know, this being a dad, man, especially in this day and age, I feel like is tougher than it's ever been because, you know, there's just there's so much judgment, and just being present for some people isn't enough. Just
Mhm.
providing isn't enough. There's guys out here, and again, it's not to take anything away from moms and or whatnot, but this
Sure.
show is about men. So
Yeah, yeah,
sorry, guys.
yeah.
But
I would also say this, and it's not a pushback. It's just
yeah,
when you said that, just my brain working. I would say it's tougher, but it's easier than it's ever been. You and
okay,
I have never seen our child on an auction block being sold. You and I have never watched anyone cut our child's penis off and set our child on fire. Our children can walk mostly free through a country and we not be worried about those. So yes, it's hard, but we also have some tools that we didn't have available to us.
for sure, for sure,
Right? We couldn't read or write, and yet many of us don't want to read or write still. But we were not able, right? We now able to read or write at the threat of death. Today we can read and we can write and we can leave a written legacy. If you and I could have read and written in the 1500s, today whatever you and I wrote will be worth millions of dollars.
for sure.
Right? 'Cause somebody would say, oh my God, these black men wrote their children in 1517. Can you believe that? But today, you and I won't write our children.
Yes,
And
and we
you
have all
have
the
we
tools.
right, and we got all the tools. We could do videos, we could do all kind of stuff, and we still talking about there ain't a manual. It's the craziest thing in the world. Create your own manual.
Okay,
Stop waiting. Like, don't wait for anybody else to do it. Cause that's what we would tell our kids. Hey, let's
exactly.
stop waiting on somebody else to do it. You do it. Okay.
Okay. So Nate, for the two more questions before we close.
Absolutely.
Okay. So for the father listening right now who wants to stop parenting on autopilot, what are three things you think that or you believe that he could do tonight to
Mhm.
change that?
One, write down whatever your most audacious hopes and dreams are for your children. First
Okay.
thing. Two, ask your children to who it's going to sound a little bit morbid, but ask your children to write your obituary. Tell your
Mm,
children they only get 10 to 12 words to describe who you are, 50 to 75 characters, because they're going to be the ones more likely than not that are actually going to write the thing when it's done. So that's just two things. And then the third thing would be to take an assessment of how much time you actually spend authentically engaged with your children. I don't mean sitting at the table watching television or they looking at their phone and you looking at your phone. I mean when you all are actually doing just like you and I've done for the last 50 minutes. How
right.
often do you spend 50 minutes to an hour just having dialogue with your children? Right? Those are three things.
Okay. I will tell you, and I told people this before. My kids have generally never really wanted to talk growing up. They didn't want the when they get home from school, the 50 questions.
Right.
So I stopped doing that. Hey, it would be a quick, hey, how was the day at school? Anything new? Da, 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 and keep it short. But come dinner time at the Darden house, everybody has to help prepare a meal. And I wouldn't ask any questions. The kids would just get to talking. They'd be talking to each other, talking to, me and my wife. And all of a sudden, we learned so
So
much about
much.
the kids, about how their day was, how they're feeling, what their headspace was, what problems were going on at school, and all just over food.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, that makes sense. And the other thing ancients used to do is they used to walk and talk. So
Yes.
sometimes I would just say to my son, "Hey, let's go take a walk," and maybe we just walk in silence.
Right.
But maybe we end up having a conversation about stuff. But yeah, those are the other way that I do it. Just take a walk.
Outstanding. All right, final question. Okay, Nate. So if you could sit across from every father, you got a crowd of fathers sitting in the audience, right?
Yep.
Yeah, obviously not every father in the world. I
Yeah.
kind of feel your wife would be on you. Hey, you need to get your
No,
butt back.
it would be cool. She's like, "Good, good. This is what you wanted to do anyway. Good. I'm happy for you."
Okay, so if you're sitting across from a father, from every father who feels tired, behind, overwhelmed, or even unsure if he is, if he's doing enough, what would you tell him about the power he still has to shape his child's future?
I would say that if you're thinking about that, you're looking at life from the rearview mirror lens, and you cannot drive forward by looking backward.
Mm,
And I would say, be present. Just be
okay,
present. So all you got is now. All you got is now. So in this now moment, which just passed, which is now the past, in this in this next now moment, like just be present. Just
right.
be present. Don't matter what you did in the past. Don't matter what your plans are in the future. What are you going to do right now? Because I told you, 175,000 people go to bed every night or go to sleep somewhere and don't wake up the next day.
That
That's
is a
a
fact.
lot of people.
Yeah, and
So
Lord
you
knows.
could be one of them. And if you worried about yesterday or worried about tomorrow, then you're going to miss the chance to do something important in the now. So be present
Mm,
now.
amen. All right, ladies and gentlemen. Nate, one more time. Hey, how can people reach out to you? What's the website?
Sure. The League of Extraordinary Parents is the organization or not for profit. It is lxtrap.com. That's lxtrap.com. And then if you wanted to read stuff where somebody might not agree with everything that's going on in the world, you may want to hear Nat Turner 2.0. You can go to Nathaniel A. Turner, Nathaniela, as in Adonis. That's not run my name, but my parents are naming that Turner, Tur.
Outstanding. Nate, hey man, thank you so much for coming on the show. Again, listen, man, it's been an education. I love listen, people think that I joke, because I always say it, especially when I learn stuff from the guests, we have a good back and forth, you know. I love it. I love it. I'm learning things about myself that I didn't know before. You know, thinking about I'm thinking about writing a book on, helping my boys out some, you know,
Good, good,
and
because
not a
only
thought
you
like that.
because only you can write that book,
Right,
right?
right. And,
N Nobody else can write that. That's
exactly.
the only book that book is your book. Only you can write that. You need to write that. And
Thank you.
speaking of books, Imma let you go because I know you gotta go.
No,
Send
no,
me
no.
send me a physical address if you would. I'm gonna send
Yes.
you the book of the letters that became the first book, which is Raising Superman.
Okay.
Because you'll see what I'm talking about. That I
My
just
man.
literally just start writing him letters, and
Okay.
and then he's the one. The unique thing about it was you might think that your children not paying attention, and then one day he says to me, he goes to Brazil. He leaves home as a 16-year-old and he travels
Mhm.
to Brazil to chase a dream of playing professional soccer. And he says to me, because you probably gotten this too, he asked me, I'm in the car crying because he's leaving. Like my baby is leaving me now. And this template has worked. And he's like, I don't want to go to college. I'm not going to college. I want to chase my dream playing professional soccer. You got to get me out the country. So I had to figure out how to get him out the country. So
Right.
we're in the car. He's preparing to go to Brazil. I'm in the car. You don't cry in 20 years. That's cool. I'm crying right now. I'm crying. I'm crying. I'm in the car and I'm crying. He's looking at me. He's like, dude, what's up with you? And I was like, man, I don't know what I'm supposed to do now. He said, what do you mean? I said, he said, well, Dad, what are your dreams? Michael, I said, I don't have any. Like, you were my dream. And now you about to lead the country. He said, Dad, he said these three sentences to me. Dad, it's not too late. You still have time. You can do more.
Mm. You know what that is, though.
It was a time for me to give him a backhand. That's what it was time for. But no, I didn't. I was,
Good. Hey, man, that's good
yeah.
parenting.
And right. So then we get to Brazil and he says, I'll leave him a few days there and I go to Rio. to meet that dominatrix you talked to last week. No, I'm kidding. I didn't do that. I went to Rio by myself. My wife calls me. She says, "You're gonna have to go back to the academy." And she says, "I don't think he's doing well. He's probably gonna come back home." When I get to the academy, he's got a big smile on his face. And I said, "Hey, your mom said you weren't well." He said, "No, Dad, let me kind of ask you a question." I said, "What?" He said, "Did you put the chapters?" I gave him some of the letters. I put him in a binder before he left. And I said,
Yeah.
he's grown. He ain't going to talk to me. He's like you said, my kids don't really want to talk to me. He don't want to talk to me. He says, "Dad, you put the letters in the order?" I said, "No." He said, "I reread the first three. I remember
Mm,
my purpose. I'm going to be fine. But I'm going to tell you what, whenever I come back, we're going to take these letters and publish them." And I was like, "What?" He said, "Dad, when you tell me I can do something, not only do I know I can do it, I know it's supposed to happen." So that's how the book came about. That's how the book came about. I was just writing letters to a child, and the
right.
child decided that the letter should be shared with the world.
Right. You listen, I'm gonna be honest with you. I will be telling most of the young men I know that, hey, write letters to your kids.
Write
I
letters to your kid. I'm gonna send you the book. So you send me an address, I'll send you the book, and then I got a couple children's books for your grandchildren.
outstanding. Hey, listen, man, I appreciate you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Nathaniel A. Turner. Guys, it's been great. Nathaniel, thank you so much for showing up today. I appreciate you.
Thanks for
God
having
bless
me, brother.
you.
Appreciate you. All right.